Yeah, I know I'm late to making this video, I don't know, time is weird. Anyways, here's my list of favorite movies from 2024. If one of your favorite movies from 2024 isn't on this list, it's either because I didn't watch it or I didn't like it enough to include it. Which is why you should follow me on Letterboxd, shameless plug. Anyways, here's the list. At number 18, I have The Contestant. This is the only documentary on this list, sorry documentary fans. Although I already knew quite a bit about the infamous Japanese game show A Life in Prizes, this documentary still brings so much to the table. It's a documentary that manages to be funny, heartbreaking, and horrifying all at the same time. If you don't know, A Life in Prizes was a game show where an aspiring comedian named Nasubi was put into a room and could only leave the room once he won 1 million yen in prizes through magazine sweepstakes. Not only that, but he was also stripped completely naked, so he had to win his own clothes as well as his own food. If that sounds really exploitative and a terrible idea for a show, that's because it is. This movie translates many aspects of the original Japanese game show into English, which I thought was pretty cool. They interview the show's producer, who is a psycho. I mean, he does show a little empathy towards Nasubi, but he mostly spends his time talking about how he made television history. They also interview Nasubi's family members who explain how horrified they were to see him in this way. And of course, they interview Nasubi. He was bullied as a child because of the way his head was shaped, and he used comedy as a coping mechanism. However, he describes the show as if he was being bullied all over again. I don't want to give everything away about the story because 1, I still have other movies I need to talk about, and 2, I highly urge you to check out the documentary for yourself. Although not perfect, it's a very shocking, twisted, and fascinating film that I'd recommend watching. At number 17, I have Wallace and Grommet, Vengeance Most Foul. Wallace and Grommet is like one of the most British things ever, behind like tea and I don't know, fish and chips. I love Wallace and Grommet. It's like the on-screen equivalent of comfort food. This film has almost everything you could want out of a modern Wallace and Grommet film. The film has intricate and colorful stop-motion animation. The film has a charming and quirky sense of humor. The film has a very exhilarating and engaging climax. Also, the film looks at modern issues concerning AI and the intimidating technological advances of our modern society in a fun and interesting way. It's not the greatest thing out there, but it's perfect for what it's aiming to be, and it does a great job at just making you smile. At number 16, I have Kinds of Kindness. This is a very divisive movie, and it's not difficult to see why. This is a purposely polarizing film, and I liked it quite a bit. This film was directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, who directed my favorite film of last year, Poor Things. Although this film isn't as good as Poor Things, it's still really good. This is an anthology film where each segment showcases the disturbing lengths that some people will go to receive love and kindness from others. The 3 segments are full of dark comedy, surreal ideas, uncomfortable scenarios, and bizarre characters. Jesse Plemons, Emma Stone, Willem Dafoe, Margaret Qualley, and Hong Chow all deliver incredible performances in this film. Both the second and third segments were excellent. They were both wonderfully absurd, provocative, and strange. However, the first segment took a while for me to get into. It wasn't bad, I actually liked it quite a bit, but it was definitely the weakest point of the film. But overall, I thought this was an amazing movie that I'd recommend watching. It's also a movie that will get Sweet Dreams by Eurythmics stuck in your head for the rest of the day. At number 15, I have Queer. Ew, a movie called Queer? I don't want to watch that. Well, I'm moving from one divisive film to another. Daniel Craig gives a truly fearless and vulnerable performance as Lee. Jason Schwartzman is almost unrecognizable in his role. In terms of cinematography, this is definitely in the top 5 for 2024. The film has colorful set design and captures the 1950s Mexico City in a gorgeous way. The score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross is both melancholic and haunting. And of course, this movie is fucking bizarre. It's a movie about loneliness and homosexuality told in such a unique and surreal way. I think some of the symbolism flew over my head on this first viewing, so this is definitely one of those movies that I should probably rewatch someday in order to truly grasp everything it's trying to tell me. However, even though all the puzzle pieces haven't fully clicked in place for me yet, the film's confident and bold approach is very engaging regardless. It's a film that feels like a mixture between an existential nightmare, a fever dream, and a gay wet dream. It's an amazing film that I'd recommend watching. At number 14, I have Society of the Snow. So this movie technically came out in 2023, but it's only got wide released at the beginning of 2024. It's confusing, I don't care, let's move on. This is a very gripping movie about trying to survive in an uncaring environment. All the acting performances feel real and harrowing. The editing is effective, and I especially enjoyed the neat editing transitions. The makeup effects are wonderfully gruesome. The film's music is great. Even the sound design is really textured. I really like this movie's use of the natural environment, natural lighting, and wide-angle lenses. It makes for a cold and claustrophobic experience that I really appreciated. The film is a bit reminiscent of The Revenant, and although I do like that movie more, this film is still really damn good. It's also just fascinating that the story this film tells is a true story. This is just an amazing movie that I'd recommend watching. At number 13, I have I'm Still Here. This is a very powerful film. I was fairly unaware of the dictatorship that Brazil fell under during the mid-60s to the mid-80s, so I'm really glad I was able to learn about it through this film. The film follows a tragic and devastating story while still having many moments of sweetness and tenderness. At its core, the film is a mixture between a historical drama and a cute slice-of-life movie. The film balances the two opposing tones tremendously well. All the performances in this film are natural and believable. Fernanda Torres in particular gives a phenomenal and compelling performance in this movie as the mother. The cinematography of the film is beautiful, and I love the way it uses different film stocks for the different time periods. Also, the ending of this movie is just perfect. This is an amazing movie that I'd recommend watching. At number 12, I have Nickel Boys. This movie is very weird and experimental, but that's also what makes the film so interesting. The performances are all great, the music fits the film extremely well, and the sound design is immersive. However, my favorite part about the movie is the editing and cinematography. How the hell did this not get nominated for Best Cinematography or Best Editing at the Oscars? If you don't already know, the film is told through a very unique and impressive first-person perspective. There are some shots that utilize reflections, and they often leave me asking, how the hell did they pull that shot off? On top of that, the film looks very sharp and colorful. The editing is also very purposeful and stylistic. The entire film just makes you feel like distant memories are flashing before your eyes. The film can be a tad difficult to connect to at times because of the bold style, but the film is still an amazing experience that I'd recommend watching if you haven't already. At number 11, I have The Girl with the Needle. This movie is disturbing and nightmarish. It dives into the evils that humanity is capable of in a hypnotic and harrowing way. The film follows a pregnant woman taking a job at an adoption agency after World War I. You might think, oh, that doesn't sound too bad, but, no, the performances are all fearless and fantastic. The black and white cinematography is beautiful, and the film uses shadows in a gothic way. The editing feels very Lynchian at times and utilizes jump cuts very well. The score is so unique and haunting. The first and third acts kept me glued to the screen. However, the film was kinda losing me during the second act. The second act wasn't bad necessarily, but I felt like it was paced weirdly. I don't know, it's kinda hard to put my finger on, to be honest. Regardless, this is still an amazing and brutal movie that I'd recommend watching if you think you can handle it. At number 10, I have Sing Sing. This is a very touching and human movie. Coleman Domingo's performance as Divine G is easily the strongest part of the movie. Definitely one of the best performances of 2024. Clarence Macklin gives an incredible performance in this movie as well. It's also interesting how most of the supporting cast are former prisoners, making the film feel much more personal and real. The cinematography has a very purposeful documentary-esque approach, and it fits the narrative of the film very well. The story that the film tells is also very powerful. It's a film that focuses on finding the humanity in prisoners and the desire for freedom, kinda like The Shawshank Redemption. However, the film is very different from a film like The Shawshank Redemption, as this film is more heartwarming than heartbreaking. Furthermore, the movie explores the therapeutic nature of artistic expression, a topic that I don't see explored in very many films. Overall, this is an amazing movie that I'd recommend watching if you haven't already. At number 9, I have Challengers. This film was directed by Luca Guadagnino, who also directed Queer. Yes, he directed 2 movies this year. I don't know how he did it, but he did. Luca Guadagnino is arguably one of the most popular and critically acclaimed openly gay filmmakers working right now, and the man definitely has some serious talent. Anyways, this movie is surprisingly intense. Like most sports, I don't really pay much attention to tennis, but this movie still managed to win me over. The acting performances are all incredible, especially Zendaya's. The characters are all pretty damn toxic, but that's what makes each character so intriguing and interesting. The relationship between the 3 characters is complicated and often driven by selfishness, which makes for a gripping experience. The cinematography is gorgeous, colorful, and very impressive. I won't spoil anything, but there's one shot near the end of the movie that genuinely made my jaw drop. If you've seen this movie, you know the one I'm talking about. The electronic score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross slaps. The editing is very stylized and expressive. I love the way the editing slows down for the emotionally driven dialogue scenes and then picks back up for the more electrifying scenes. That's just great filmmaking. Then of course there's the writing. To talk about the writing, I want to compare it to another sports movie, Raging Bull. The film Raging Bull was written in a way that felt like a boxing match, with the violence and rage taking place inside and outside the boxing ring. Challengers is pretty similar, but it's tennis instead of boxing. The dialogue and arguments have a gripping back and forth dynamic. The film also has many flashbacks intertwined with the present, giving off the feeling like you're being bounced around a tennis court. The film also has a great sense of humor, which was pretty surprising to me. Yeah, this is an amazing sex-fueled sports drama that I'd recommend watching if you haven't already. At number 8, I have Anora. This film was directed by Sean Baker, who won the Best Director Oscar for this movie. He also directed The Florida Project, Tangerine, and Red Rocket. Although I haven't seen them yet, I definitely want to now, because Anora was an incredible introduction into the man's body of work. The performances and characters are all naturalistic and believable. Mikey Madison's performance as Annie in particular is just phenomenal and is easily one of the best performances of 2024. The handheld cinematography flows very fluently and is very colorful. The editing captures the frantic nature of the story in an engaging way. Speaking of, this movie is just a wild ride. It's a story about sex work that manages to be funny, stressful, energetic, and tragic all at the same time. This film is a roller coaster of emotions that eventually leads to an unforgettable conclusion. I also love how the film both critiques the sex work industry while still showing empathy to the people working in it. It adds an extra layer of humanity and nuance to this story about an often taboo subject. This is just an amazing film that I'd recommend watching if you haven't already. At number 7, I have Mars Express. This is a movie that wears its inspirations on its sleeve while still feeling completely new. An incredibly impressive directorial debut from Jeremy Perrin, though he did also direct one of my favorite music videos of all time, Fantasy by DYE, which sadly got removed from YouTube for being too awesome, though you can easily find it on Vimeo. But that video is weird and scary. Shut the fuck up, it was cool. If there's one word that perfectly describes this movie, it's the word badass. The cyberpunk world this movie creates feels both fresh and like a loving homage to all the sci-fi worlds that came before it. The film almost feels like a cross between Blade Runner and an action-focused anime, while still twisting both these things into something uniquely its own. The animation is beautiful, colorful, meticulously crafted, and filled with imagination. The action scenes have such a kinetic energy to them, and each one has an awe-inspiring spectacle to it. The soundtrack is spectacular, and it just goes insanely hard. The film even has some funny comedy sprinkled in while still keeping a serious tone. Although the film is mostly a sci-fi action flick, the film still manages to have some dramatic moments that explore the clash between humanity and technology. The ending of the movie in particular is very hauntingly beautiful. This is definitely the most underrated film from last year, and it's one that I'd highly recommend watching if you haven't already. At number 6, I have Memoir of a Snail. This film is directed by Adam Elliott, who directed Marion Max, a movie I talked about in my artsy animated movies video. Honestly, I might like this movie more than Marion Max. The characters are all unique and memorable. Grace is a fantastic main character and is very easy to empathize with. The characters of Pinky, the brother, and the father are brilliantly written as well. The stop-motion animation is beautiful, especially with the bizarre and expressionistic character designs. But of course, this film is brutal. The film has many dark, depressing, and devastating moments in it. I have seen some people criticize the film for being too dark, bordering on misery porn, but I disagree. Despite the film's heartbreaking moments, the film still manages to have an enjoyable sense of humor and a sincere amount of hope mixed in with all the tragedy. Furthermore, the film's immense darkness always serves the themes of the story and never feels like it's being needlessly nihilistic. It's a movie all about loneliness, depression, isolation, and the human condition. Lastly, the film ends on a beautiful note. This is an incredible and mature animated drama that I'd highly recommend watching if you haven't already. At number 5, I have Hundreds of Beavers. Not only is this the funniest movie of 2024, but I also think it's the funniest movie of the 2020s so far. The visual gags, the immense absurdity, and the slapstick had me consistently chuckling throughout the film. This film further proves why I think slapstick is the most timeless and universal form of comedy. I know comedy is subjective, but if you don't think people getting hurt is funny, then that just means you're not funny. Sorry, but it's true. The film wears its inspirations on its sleeve, being very clearly influenced by Looney Tunes cartoons, Charlie Chaplin movies, and Three Stooges shorts. Not only is the film funny, but it's surprisingly impressive technically as well. Despite the film's absurdity, it goes all out on the visuals. The film's use of costumes and puppetry really adds to the surrealist vibe. The film's blend of live action with animation is expressive and creative. The film might honestly have some of the best and most unique usage of green screens I've ever seen in a movie. Also, the sound design matches the visuals perfectly, cause you can't have slapstick without some goofy sound effects. On top of all that, the film is just fun. It's right there alongside films like Kung Fu Hustle, Scott Pilgrim, and RRR. Movies that aren't trying to be anything deep and are instead just trying to be a good time, achieving that goal in a wonderful way. This is an incredible comedy film that I'd highly recommend watching if you haven't already. At number 4, I have Noseratu. This film is directed by Robert Eggers, who directed The Lighthouse, The Northman, and The Witch. Although I do prefer The Lighthouse to this movie, I do like this more than The Northman and The Witch. Lily Rose Depp gives an insane and fearless performance as Ellen, Nicholas Hoult is fantastic as Thomas, and of course Bill Skarsgård is truly unsettling as Count Orlok. The makeup team did an amazing job at transforming Skarsgård into this ghoulish and otherworldly vampire. Since it's a Robert Eggers movie, the historical accuracy is phenomenal. He truly has a talent for sucking the viewer into different time periods through old-fashioned dialects, bizarre folklore, extravagant costumes, and gothic set design. Robert Eggers makes period pieces like no other, and I can't wait to see what he does next. The cinematography is beautiful, especially with its haunting use of shadows and lighting choices. The editing gives the movie a very nice flow. The music is wonderfully eerie and gets under your skin so easily. The film delivers on the horror and writing elements as well. Similarly to The Lighthouse, this film has a truly hellish atmosphere and a ton to interpret thematically. This is an incredible horror movie that I'd highly recommend watching. At number 3, I have The Substance. First of all, let's give a quick moment of silence for all the parents that got suckered into watching this movie with their liberal arts major kid not realizing what they just agreed to. Anyways, I loved the hell out of this movie. If there's one thing that you probably know about my taste in film by now, I love it when film directors have an interesting voice and a strong vision. Coralie Farge proves through this movie that she's the next big surrealist weirdo filmmaker to pay attention to. Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley both give amazing and fearless performances in this movie. The cinematography utilizes wide-angle lenses and a vibrant color palette to a fantastic effect. The editing is energetic and stylish, stylish. The visual effects are gruesome, creative, and just flat out insane. Speaking of, this is a brutal, dark, and disgusting movie. Despite that, the film manages to have a very twisted sense of humor. The last 30 minutes of the film in particular are so tragic and grotesque, yet so fucking hilarious at the same time. I also just love the bizarre concept of the film, and it's explored in such an engaging way. It's through this weird concepts that the film tackles themes of self-loathing, the patriarchy, and the sad reality of beauty standards and celebrity culture. Sure, the film doesn't explore those themes in the most subtle way, but the film clearly isn't trying to. The film is trying to be wacky, exaggerated, and blunt, which the film achieves well in my opinion. Overall, this is an incredible body horror flick that I'd highly recommend watching. At number 2, I have Dune II. Kinda funny how that worked out. I already talked about this movie in my Denis Villeneuve ranking video, so I'll keep this short. This is definitely one of those movies that's going to go down as a future classic someday. The first Dune was great, but this one is on a whole other level. It's beautifully shot, it's exhilarating, it's awe-inspiring, and it's epic. Go watch this film if you haven't already. And at number 1, I have The Brutalist. Adrien Brody gives one of the best performances of his entire career as Laszlo. Guy Pearce gives a complex and larger-than-life performance as Harrison. Felicity Jones gives a remarkable performance as Erzsébet. The relationship that forms between these three characters and the way their personalities bounce off each other is simply mesmerizing to watch. The film stock cinematography gives the film a beautifully old-fashioned look. The costumes and set design match the time period of the film extremely well. This film has probably my favorite score of 2024. That Best Score Oscar was 100% deserved. Many people have compared The Brutalist to the films of Paul Thomas Anderson, mainly There Will Be Blood and The Master. I can totally see why, but this film still manages to have a distinct style and personality, most notably through the editing. The film utilizes many jump cuts and archival footage to tell its epic story despite the film's indie budget. The fact that this movie feels as epic as it does while having a budget of $10 million is insane to me. The film also utilizes text in a stylistic way, particularly through the opening and closing credits as well as the intermission. Yes, a film from 2024 has an intermission. Bring intermissions back, people. This film also goes into some very dark territory, particularly through a horrifying scene in the second half. I won't spoil it, but if you've seen this movie, then you know the scene I'm talking about. It's a brutal scene that circles back to the film's themes in a powerful way. At its core, this film is a deconstruction of the American dream. It's a film that showcases the complicated power dynamics between struggling artists and the capitalist system. It's a film that questions how much of yourself are you willing to give up for your work, a theme emphasized through the ironic main storyline of a Jewish man spending many years to build a church. Lastly, the ending of this movie is a perfect gut punch that serves the movie's themes in a brilliant way. Now, because it is a hot button issue right now, I will touch on the AI controversy surrounding this film really quick. For those who don't know, the film utilized AI to make the moments where the characters speak Hungarian sound more natural. To assess this, I'm going to try to break down the difference between ethical and unethical AI. Using AI as a tool to enhance something, like in The Brutalist, or help you make something, is perfectly ethical in my opinion. In the case of unethical AI, it would be shit like AI-generated images, ChatGPT, deepfakes, and AI chatbots. That stuff is lazy, selfish, gross, manipulative, and inhuman slop. The people who support that stuff can go fuck themselves. Yeah, I don't even care. Here's how I see it. If the use of AI is taking away someone else's job or is being used to manipulate people, then it's unethical. If it isn't, and it's just being used as a tool or to mess around, then I think it's fine. Anyways, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, The Brutalist. I was blown away by this film, and I think it's a masterpiece. Highly recommend watching this film if you haven't already. So yeah, those were my favorite movies of 2024. If any of the movies I talked about sounded interesting to you, check them out. Next video, I'm talking about Scientology. Subscribe or something like that. Bye bye.